I know it's post Rosh Hashanah, but nevertheless we still are in the middle of Rosh Hashanah. But as we know, all these there are lots of lessons we can learn from all these halachas, even though it's now a day after Rosh Hashanah. Nevertheless, lots of things come out from this. So let's press on. We were in the middle of Chov Zayin Omid Base. Remember last week we were talking about adding bits to the shofar, whether you had holes in, and then adding. We are where it says, the Masni, we did all that. Where at the beginning of the line is Dim Bi Minai. We were talking about, remember you needed, the conditions won't go into that. That was with holes in. At the beginning of the line is Dim Bi Minai, which is 1, 2, 3. 12 lines up, gentlemen. And what we've been looking at is various brises which come to supplement what we've seen in the Mishnah, which talks about various things, or what they're called pasulim for the shofar. And then we saw various brises, which were in addition to the Mishnah, which come and add a little bit to what we've seen in the Mishnah. So 12 lines up, Chov Zayin on the base. And one of the things we mentioned already, but this brisa has more detail, Tzipohu Zohov, do you remember? Covering it with gold. And we spoke about that before. Mibifnin posel, miba inside. Clearly, if you've got a nice layer of gold inside, then of course you won't be actually blowing through the shofar, you'll be blowing onto the gold. So that would be possible. What about if it's on the outside? We saw some of this. Mibachut im nishtane koilai. Do you remember that was the crucial point? If the sound changes. If the sound changes, mikamosha hoya, as it was previously, then clearly the gold is adding something to the tone and the sound, and therefore it will be possible. V'im lav, if not, and you could have that. Sometimes, as I say, you buy some shofars here in Eretz Yisrael with the sticker on, which will be put then, as I mentioned last week. You do have to be careful that there are no holes on the shofars. Some of them not noticeable. But if you do have something stuck to the side of the shofar, then as long as it doesn't actually change the sound, and that is quite easy not to change the sound, but watch out for that. If you had something just stuck on the side. Again, if it changes koiloi, beginning of line, mikamosha hoya posel, v'im lav kosher, otherwise it will be kosher. And some people do still have that sticker on the side of the shofar, showing that in fact it is has been checked and it is authentic, and hopefully no holes on. Then we had this another point which we haven't really discussed. I don't know, Malcolm, in your time as a shofar blower, have you come across the smallest shofar you've seen? What is the smallest size shofar? Let's have a look at this. Nistak la'orkai. If it's split lengthwise, then clearly, if it right across the length, and look at Rashi here, nistak, 3 lines down, 3 narrow lines down in Rashi. Nistak kula, the whole of it split right across. V'chein nistak l'rochbo. In a moment we'll talk about if it's width-wise. Kol rochbo lehekefa, going right round. There's a split right across. Obviously, just about hanging on. It sounds like nistak la'orkos posel, because clearly when you're blowing it, you're not actually blowing through a shofar. Part of it is open on the top where you're blowing. But l'rochboi, if it's split across the width, so when you blow through the shofar, actually the sound is coming out through that big hole. If you can picture it, you've got a long shofar split along the width, if you see what I mean, split right across, so the lower part just hanging on. But when you blow through, you'll be blowing through, the air will come out, the sound will come out from above where it's split. Says the Gemara, l'rochboi im nishtay. Now this is the point. Im nishtaya bo kashir t'kia kosher. As long as you've got the minimum size of a shofar, then it will be kosher, v'im lav posel. So you've got the sound coming from your mouth out to the hole. Imagine it's split widthwise. So the air now, the sound is coming out, not through the end of the shofar, perhaps where the hole is. Have a look at Rashi. Im nishtaya. So nistak we saw before. Im nishtaya, bow. Have you got the word bow? 5 narrow lines down. Min mokom hasedek. From the place where there is this split in the shofar. Ad mokom anochas hapen, until where the mouthpiece is. Shiur tekiah. The minimum length of a shofar tekiah, which here means a shofar, kosher. It is kosher. Why? Choshev le command ishtakil kule. It's as if that part which is like hanging, imagine the whole of it had disappeared, had been taken off, cut off. Va'avale oruch uketsarai. Now go back to the first line of the Gemara. Goes back a week or two. Tonu Rabbanon, you remember the ruling? Oruch uketsaro. If it was long and then it was actually shortened, you can shorten the length of a shofar. That is kosher. But what's crucial here is as long as you have the minimum size. Now, what is the minimum size? If I can ask you, Peter, to bring one of the Mishnah Berurah. Which one are we going to go for? I don't think I will number them. It's probably going to be the Tov Kuf Pevov, maybe, or Tov Kuf Pevov Sifyud Dalet. Is that what you got? Oh no, that's the one. Page Samach. Good. If you could just blow that up a bit for us. Yeah, oh, good. Well done. Thank you very much. A bit wider, please. Yes. This halacha coming up in the Shulchan Aruch, and there it is, chapter Tov Kuf Pevov Tes. Now, don't think I'm just super clever for remembering where this is. If you look at your Gemara, on the side, in mine it's on the right-hand side, it's called Ein Mishpot Ner Mitzvah. Do you have that in your Gemara? And you'll see next to the Gemara we were just doing, where it says Nistak la'orko posul u'rochboi. I've got a superscript there, little chaf in mine, and that takes me to the side of the Gemara, and there's a little chaf there, and it tells me l'rochbo im nishtayer. It says, Maiman, Shom, Tur b'Shulchan Aruch, Shom, Siftes. Have you got that? Actually, do you want to go back for a moment to people's faces? Don't lose that. Yes, you've got the Gemara. Perhaps you can bring up the Gemara, Peter, will be useful. Very important that people know how to do this. A little chaf. Can anybody see that? Well done. Just scroll down a little bit. There it is. Well done. So go down. L'rochbo. There you are. Right at the end. The end of the word. Come down, down, down. Keep going to the end of the line. Last two words. There it is. L'rochbo. And you can see that superscript. Little chaf. Very small. Now drop down. Scroll the other way. I'm going to take that letter chaf, and if you see on the top right hand, you've got what's called Ein Mishpot Ner Mitzvah, and that lists the first number is the reference in the perek, so it's the 20th reference, the 21st. Next to that, I've got a little aleph, which means it's the first reference on the page. So drop down to where it says Chofches. Yes, 28. 2 more, 3 more. Chofches is the 28th reference in the perek. There's Chaf, which is the 20th reference on the page next to it. A lamed, or the same source, is going to be The
The
Lamed.
11th, is it the 11th rather than the 20th? Or,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. Absolutely. Thank you, Benji. Absolutely right. It's the 11th reference, and Lamed, of course, will be the 12th reference. It's just, absolutely right. The Chof does not mean 20. It's a lettering system. So obviously, after you've got Yud, you go to, rather than Yud Aleph, they use Chof. And that will then tell you that the source of this is actually found in Maimon, that's a Rambam, Shom, which is like a ditto. And then you've got the Tur and the Shulchan Aruch. Again, Shom, which means a ditto. The ditto, you'll have to go right to the top where it says Tov Kuf Pevov, right on top where you've got the Chaf and the Aleph. And then it tells you Siftes, which is paragraph 9. Yeah, thank you, Peter. Yeah, on top. Can you see on top it says on the right-hand side, Orachayim, Simon, Tov Kuf Pevov, and that's exactly where we've gone. So it's chapter 586. So if I can now go back to the Shulchan Aruch, and this is really just to point out, thank you. No, not that one. The one below it, I think. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. And it's paragraph 9. Nistak l'roch, remember, if it's split widthways, b'miyuto kosher berubai posel elo if most of it is disappeared, so it's in other words, it's split badly, so the air now is coming out, not from the end of the shofar, but where the split is posel ela im kain nishar mehasedek. There's your word nishtaya, Mervyn. Remaining from the where there is this split, litzat piv, next line, to where his mouth is, the mouthpiece, shiur tekiah. There's again your word of shiur tekiah, meaning the sound to make this tekiah. And what is that? And now we have actually, and you see from the source here, it comes from the Rosh and various other sources. What is the minimum share of a shofar? Dahainu dim dalad goidelin. For a goidelin. Now, how much is that? Because it's a different shofar now. Now, follow down where it says, if you can scroll, please, to letter. Thank you. That nun dalad. You got the nun dalad there? As we come down a bit more, letter nun dalad in the Mishnah Berurah. A few more lines, then nun base, nun gimel, nun dalad. There you are. Thank you. 3 more lines as you're coming down. That's it. Nun dalad. Dahainu dalad goidlin shel odom beinani. Of the average man, or some people say the mean man, if he's mean, the average person, which means a goidlin means the fingers, finger breadth. Umoidin be'ensa ho'egoidl. The middle of the finger, velo barosh, not at the tip, because of course that would be much smaller. Sheshom miskatzer, where the fingers start to shorten. Behu shir tefach. That's very clever. So if we can go back to faces, please. What the Mishnah Berurah is saying, it's the length of 4 fingers. With me? And that is called a tefach. Of the average man. Yeah? That, some people say something like 10 centimeters of tefach. Maybe just under, 9.6, 10 centimeters. And that's very interesting, which means, therefore, that the smallest shofar can fit in the hand of the average person. That is the smallest size, and he'd be blowing. That's the minimum. Of course, it can be longer than that. A shofar smaller than that, so that's quite small, isn't it? A shofar, less than 8 centimeters, a 6 centimeter shofar. Malcolm, you've seen a smaller shofar than that?
I'm just thinking about the width of the bell, as it were. I mean, if you compare the size of the hole from that end to that end,
Yeah,
and
so
if you cut it, if you were to cut it off here,
yes,
you'd have a very small opening, but I mean, you probably would still get a sound.
that will be kosher. Exactly that. So put that in your hand for a minute. Put it back into your hand. Right, there you are. So you could cut it off at the end of your four fingers. Yes. If you cut it there, that would still be kosher. Although the sound has changed, doesn't matter. It's a new shofar. And you can understand that besides the fact that, there were many occasions where people were hiding shofars, as we know, over the ages. But it actually means that the shofar could be carried around without being noticeable. Yeah, which is amazing because that is the minimum size shiur. So yes, it could. You'd think you're right. The most shofars we see are much larger than that. Of course, then it would be noticeable. So the minimum shiur can fit in the hand of a person. So if you're really in difficulties, and people were in difficulties going back 80 years ago, whatever, people could cut the shofar to that minimum shiur, and then they could actually hold it and then blow it.
But in our situation, we're not talking about a cut shofar. We're talking about a cracked shofar.
That's right. You're quite right.
So my question, I mean, perhaps Malcolm, I mean, the fact that you've got a crack and you're treating it as though it's cut there.
Yes.
Is there not the possibility that the existence of the remainder would affect the sound and therefore not be equivalent to a fully cut?
Good point. You're quite right. What we're saying here is you'd have to work that out for yourself to ensure that, in fact, the sound will change. I suppose the easiest way would be to put your hand on top of the very end and see the sound you're getting. But if you're right, if it would change, then you'd have to watch out for that. But you'd assume that it's like cracked. It's quite a crack. It's right at what we're talking about here. And then notice Rashi did say that. It's kol roch b'oleh kefa. The whole way around, there's this crack. And as long as then the shofar, the sound, we'd imagine if the whole shofar was actually cut there. That's interesting. What you could say as well, once it's actually still connected, it still actually is a shofar. So it's still got a din of a shofar, but it can't be worse. Well, I mean, your point is maybe it is worse. Maybe the sound is changing from that. But as we said before, a changing sound, which comes just from cutting the shofar, and if you'd imagine it wasn't there at all, then that would be all right. Do you remember last week we were talking about, filling holes of a shofar? Remember last week?
Circumferential crack.
I'm sorry?
We talked about circumferential crack.
Yeah.
Not so. What about if it was longitudinal going up?
Then you're actually not blowing. Your sound then is not actually going through the whole shofar, is it? If it's cracked lengthways from the mouthpiece onwards, your sound is not going through the shofar.
We're talking about circum.
Sam, your point, actually, let's just clarify that. We said last week, and the bottom line was, just when the conclusion we had last week was the following: that if you had a shofar with holes in it and you fill the holes, as a dentist would, fill the holes, if the sound has changed, then you're in trouble. But if you've got holes in, and whatever sound you've got are always going to be all right. Just trying to find another source for you here. No, if you've got a sound, let's just have a look here. As you've raised that point, if you've got a shofar. Hold on a second. Let's just find this for you.
It could be a whistling sound through a crack.
That doesn't matter because any sound is okay, as we'll see.
Right.
Hold on a second. In Nikev. Yeah, this is good. Oh, you haven't got that, but I have now. I've got the same. It's not a page that I sent you, I'm afraid, but I've got the Shulchan Aruch. Back to your point, Sam. The rule about the hole is the following, and this was a conclusion from last week. If you did not plug that hole, even though the sound changes, kosher. Remember we learned that last week? Because every sound of a shofar, and it's still now a shofar, once you fill it with something else, you've got to be very careful. But if it's got a hole, even though the sound has changed, you are blowing through a shofar, and that's kosher. So back to our example, if it's split, then maybe the sound has changed, even though the sound may be coming out different parts of the shofar. The sound doesn't matter, but it can't be worse than if the hole, you see, where the split, from the split, if that's all cut off, it would be kosher. So therefore, we regard it as if you've still got from that split to the mouthpiece this minimum size, that's called a shofar. It's got the name of a shofar. Then any sound that it's producing is fine. You with me? You've got to blow a shofar. Any sound is all right, but it's got to be a shofar. The minimum size of the shofar is, as we said, these 4 finger breadths. As long as you've got that and then the split, the sound that's coming from it, and you haven't filled it up with silver or gold, is going to be fine. With me? So let's just follow that. We'll see there's more to come. And that point I've just mentioned is now going to be clarified in the Gemara. Please see the Gemara. Perhaps you should have seen the Gemara first. In the Shtaya Boshir Tikir Kosha, Vim La Apostle, and then the Gemara goes on to say, we've already seen that in the Shulchan Aruch. Notice the superscript Lamed next to the word V'kama. How? V'kama, hold on a sec, Malcolm. V'kama Shir Tikir. What is the Shiur? And you're quite right, it said Shkia, which means a shofar, which giving you the sound that you require. Pirush Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, no less. Kadesh Yerchzenu biyodo v'yero'eh. It will be seen. Lakan or lakan. You could see it. Doesn't have to protrude out, but you could see it from it when you're actually holding it. And we said that that's the size, therefore, of 4 fingers. Malcolm, you had a question.
Oh, it was just a little comment because I had the honor of reviewing this book called The Shofar by Jeremy Montague of Oliver Shalom, who was an expert on biblical instruments, and he has a picture here of the smallest shofar. I just wanted to show you. I don't know if you can really see it. It's a hand showing a shofar. Right. And what he says is, I just thought it might be of interest. He says, this is quoting from the book, yeah? It says, I was given a shofar by Shimon Kenan, somebody, a friend of his, I suppose, in Israel, that is 185 millimeters long.
Right.
It is blowable with difficulty and is only marginally a permitted length since each end is just visible beyond the span of my hand.
Oh, very good. Nice.
So it's an actual
shofar.
It's a full size. It's a full size.
Just going beyond.
It's a goat horn.
Yes, but no.
Jeremy Montague was a big man.
Yeah, it's a big hand. You mean?
A big hand. Oh, right. Okay.
Anyway,
sounds like you knew of him, did you?
Yeah, he had this sort of collection. Yeah.
He was at my college.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go. But in no time, yes, no, it's good. He quotes that minimum size. He says that only just larger than the minimum size. So there you are. And the minimum size he would have got from this Gemara and reflected in the Shulchan Aruch that we just saw. So you're quite right. That picture shows it's just larger than the real minimum. So yeah, I haven't seen any shofar smaller than that.
I suppose
it's more difficult to blow, of course.
I mean,
oh yeah.
Do you think it's related to the fact that it's coming from nature? That is it is an actual horn.
Yes, but you can shorten it, and people may well have been short. Of course, I would have thought much more difficult to blow, as you say, the sound to get out if it's been shortened, but it would be kosher. And then the Gemara goes on to mention this other point we mentioned, hoyo kolo duck. I don't know how you'd say that. Duck is like normally a thin sound. If you the sound is what's way to translate? Hoyo the duck oval, more of a heavy, thick sound. Otsoror. Interesting. Rashi translates it yovesh, a dry sound. All these different sounds coming from a shofar. I would say more a rough sound. Kosher, all of that is kosher, which does help you with your very small shofar. Shekol hakolos kasherin b'shofar. All sounds are permitted in the shofar, and that again is reflected in the Shulchan Aruch. And that's why even if you did have holes in the shofar, it would still be okay, because all sounds are kosher. And I've got that in my Shulchan Aruch next to me here. Again, if you look around the side, that comes up in paragraph 6, which says exactly that. Kol hakolos kasheros. In Yovesh, he mentions exactly that point about the sound, a bit of a rough sound. Yeah. So don't need to worry too much. Everybody always says what a beautiful shofar sound we heard. But in fact, they're kosher. Any sound, even if it's, I'll say, a bit of a rough sound, it doesn't matter. It's coming from a shofar, and it would be kosher. Okay, on we go.
Norman, I had no idea, because I tried to foolishly tried to blow a shofar this year, having watched a YouTube video. And of course, when you try it, you get, if you don't blow it quite properly, you get a sort of very breathy sound. But what you're saying is that that's perfectly kosher, as long as it is a sound.
Yes, that's a sound, absolutely. Absolutely.
I thought it had to be quite a pure,
well, it's nice.
Malcolm do it, it's like a concert shofar blur.
Everybody thinks, oh, what a beautiful shofar sound it was, which is very nice.
That's not true.
But I mean, it sounds nice, but it's kosher, whatever you're blowing. Absolutely right.
Okay.
Which does mean, therefore, that almost anybody should be able to actually blow a shofar. Quite honestly, if you'd be stuck somewhere and you couldn't blow, you could blow for yourself. Just take a shofar and blow it. You get some type of sound out.
Interesting.
But then you need to know about the trickier. See that the problems that come, and we're not going to go into that here. That comes up later on in the Gemara. When you've got the shavarim and the trua, you've got to get different type of sounds. Now that's when it gets trickier. Especially the trua, the separate notes or the longer notes and how long they've got to be. That's, you see, the halachas, and that's where you do need the rabbi next to you. But the actual sound itself, as we've said, is fine. Okay, on we go. They sent a message. The father of Shmuel. There we go. What happened here? A hole was put in the shofar, v'toka, boy, and then he blew. Yotza is yotza. Okay, we'll see about this in a minute. Says the Rav Pshita. What do you mean a hole was placed in it? Have a look at Rashi here. What type of hole? We're not talking about a hole in the shofar, but look at Rashi. It means in the mouthpiece. Kedochai nekova, he made a hole in the shofar. V'kosal kadatach, we think it's the hole just where the mouthpiece is, and that's exactly, says the Gemara, Pshita. Obviously, it's kosher. Why? That's exactly what you do to make a shofar into an instrument that you could blow. You'd have to make a hole at the mouthpiece or the smaller edge, and that's exactly how you'd have a shofar. Kulhu nami miktach kedochulahu. You've got to have a hole to blow through, and if you haven't got one, you'd have to make a hole, which is fine, and that's what you're going to do. So what's the big chiddush? Where he asks this question, what happens if you place a hole in? Well, otherwise, how are you going to have a sound if it's going to be, at the end, closed at the end? You clearly won't be able to blow without putting a hole in it. Omar Avashi, this is interesting. What is that talking about? Have a look at Rashi. When it's connected to the animal, etzem bolate. There is a bone which protrudes min horosh from the head, and it goes into the shofar itself. What normally happens, you remove that bone mitocho from the shofar. This individual did not remove that bone. Ella, what did he do? He left the bone in. But nokav es hazachrus, it's called. He put a hole in that bone. So the bone is now in the shofar. It hadn't been removed. By removing that bone, you'd be able to blow. But he didn't do that. They placed a hole in the bone whilst it's still in the shofar. Says the Gemara, Mao the same, but you might think, min b'minay chaytzeitz. It will be like a chatzitz or something which is a barrier between the shofar itself, and that will be no good. Komash malon, that teaches us to know that's fine. If you did that, it's part and parcel of the shofar. Maybe more difficult to blow again because I suppose you've only got a very small hole for blowing into. But again, that would be mutter. I've got the shofar. I haven't given you all these references, Peter. I've got the Shulchan Aruch for this in front of me, and the same thing comes up in the rule book, otherwise known as the Shulchan Aruch, where it says exactly that. If the bone had not been removed, it's kosher, but that bone must not be used as a shofar itself. If it's still in the shofar, you can place a hole in it and blow it. But that you can do. It's kosher, says that the Mishnah that I've got in front of me. You can do that. It's not chaytzitz. It's not considered like two shofars. Remember we spoke about blowing two shofars because it's actually like that for the way it was on the animal, and therefore it's part and parcel of the animal. Okay, on we go, gentlemen. We now go back to the Mishnah. Now, if you remember, we're now up to the second line on the top of the page of the Mishnah.
So I can ask, no, why do you have to say min b'mino? I mean, even if it's...
I might have thought min b'mino is chaytzeit, so that was a question. Min she'eno mino, then I certainly would say that would be a chatzitza.
I see, kosher case.
So that was his question. Oh, Mada say min b'mino chaytzeit, it's a question, is it chaytzeit or not? And the answer is no, it isn't. And for that very reason, because it is part and parcel of the show. Do you remember we had before? Remember you're right. Placing some gold inside? That's no good. And you're quite right, it will be a kolshchen. Does it extend this point to also min b'mino, or is it got to be truly a shofar and just a shofar on its own?
So what was the half a minute when they asked the question, kodcho v'tokavu?
I might have thought maybe that also you're going to say the same with min b'mino, it will be chaytzeit. Is that the halacha? In other words, just questioning. Do you find the same halacha applied just like if you had gold inside? That's no good. Yeah. Is the same halacha? And he said to him, no, it doesn't. It's not. It's rather, it's min b'min is not chaytzeit, and that's exactly comes up here. Lo hotziz k'shu mechuba. He says exactly that. Yeah, and the answer of the Gemara is min b'minai is not chaytzeit. So if you ask that question, it actually does not act as a barrier, and therefore it's fine. Okay, on we go, gentlemen. Now the second line of the Mishnah, we're picking up the Gemara here, but it comes up in the Mishnah. If you can see the second line, Somebody, when we spoke about this point before, blowing into a pit. Remember? Second line of the Gemara, of the Mishnah, and before we go to the Gemara. Someone blowing into a pit. Remember this dus that we mentioned, in fact, on the previous Talmud? And that was where you actually have something built into the ground. It's not a natural pit. Well, it is. You've got a natural pit, but you've actually built something there. And remember the pits, we had all this on the Chof Zayin Amud Aleph, and that was like a big barrel. So there are three things here: either into the ground, you're blowing into a pit. And remember, we said again, this was sadly something which people may have been doing. They were trying to hide, where it was forbidden maybe to blow the shofar, so they would be doing something just like this. They would be hiding in a pit. People down there, if it was large enough, they're blowing in the pit. Or they're blowing into a cistern, I suppose is the best way to translate this dus. Or a pitus would be like a barrel, very large barrel, people hiding inside, blowing a shofar. So what does the Mishnah say? Im kol ha-shofar shoma yotza. Blowing into this barrel, if you hear the sound of the shofar, then it's fine. But if you hear the sound of a echo, lo yotza. You are not yotza. That's a kol havora. Let's have a look at the Gemara on this, please. 6 lines up. Omar Rav Huna. Lo shonu. They only learnt this halacha in the Mishnah. Elo lo isum ha'oindim al sfas haber. Those people who are standing outside, you're blowing into a pit, and you've got people who are standing outside. Maybe there are people inside, but people outside. The people outside, there you need to be concerned. Are they hearing the real thing, or was it an echo that you heard inside? Maybe the sound was kept inside and it's just an echo. Those people actually in the pit, Yotsu, they must have heard the shofar. You're blowing it into the shofar. So that's what they must have heard. So therefore, they are clearly Yotsu. Have a look at Rashi. For sure, they hear the sound of the shofar. You're blowing into the pit. You hear the sound of the shofar. The question we need to be concerned about is people outside. Continue the Gemara. Says the Gemara. 4 lines up now. Those people in the pit, they are your Tanya Nami Hochi. In fact, we got a brisa like this because it says Hatuker lesoicha bar, blowing into a bar, or lesoicha dus, the system, yotza, and there's no qualification there. So, but we've learned in our Mishnah, not necessarily. We've said there are some occasions it says lo yotza if you're hearing the echo. Why doesn't it mention that in the brisa? This is a proof. We've got a Mishnah and a brisa. The Mishnah is talking about the people outside the pit, but the people inside the pit, of course, you're blowing in there because you'll hear the shofar. There's no doubt that you heard the shofar. It says the Gemara, some people throw a question, a ramiyah. They mentioned this Mishnah and the Brisa, and they brought this as a question, which way that then solved. Look at this. Tanan, we've learned in the Mishnah, there can be occasions when you're not yotza. But we learned in the Brisa, yotza. You're always yotza with no conditions attached. Omar Rav Huna, and it was Rav Huna. So it's just the way this Gemara was learned. It gets to the same conclusion. It depends how it was learned in the college. Omar Rav Huna said, Lo kasha. No. Kan la'imdim al sfas habar. Our Mishnah, which makes differences, whether you do hear or did you hear the echo, that is talking about people outside. Khan, however, here, the Brisa, which says for sure you are Yotza, la'oson ha'omdim babar. Now, if I can ask you, Peter, to another source of that Mishnah Berurah, and this halacha comes up because there's a fascinating halacha on this.
So the people who are in the bar, they may be hearing two. I think we mentioned this last week. They may be hearing two sounds, mightn't they? Both
yes,
the echo and the direct. So
they certainly would hear the direct. I mean, presumably they would start off hearing that direct one, and then they would hear all of that. And remember, we learned before, if you've got these two sounds, you start off hearing that shofar, and presumably could continue to focus. You'd hear both of them. And therefore you'd be
sounds to be okay then.
What one wouldn't interfere with the other.
Yeah.
Now roll down in Hischeliska Babo. Oh, this is a very interesting halacha. In Hischeliska Babo, someone, imagine someone is the Gomra Yotza Shekol Masha Shoma. Have a look at the Ramah, third line down. This is the Ramah. Hagor. Now, what this means is the following. If you can scroll down, Tov Kuf Pei Zayin, scroll down to the Mishnah Berurah. I want to explain a very interesting halacha here. So, imagine the Shulchan Aruch is talking about someone blowing he's blowing and coming out. What about if he's blowing into the shofar, into the pit, and he himself is standing outside? Right? He blows it into the pit. Imagine a very long shofar, nicely curved. He's blowing into the pit, and he's standing outside. It is possible that he will only hear an echo. And we said before, if you're outside and only hear an echo, you are not Yotza, correct? But he's blowing into the pit, right? So there are people inside this big pit, a massive shofar, imagine, and he is standing outside. Let me ask you the following question. Imagine, therefore, that he is not hearing the sound of the shofar. He is hearing the echo. But the people inside are hearing the shofar. A very interesting halacha. Have a look at the second wide line of the Mishnah Berurah. Haturkeya, thank you. The middle of that line. Thank you, Peter. Haturkeya shehichnis shofar labar. He puts the shofar into a pit, and he is blowing from outside. V'hu ba'atzmai. Oimeid kuloi bachutz. He is standing outside. What would you say? Imagine he's in the situation where he actually can't hear a shofar. He only hears the echo. Would the people inside the pit be yotze the mitzvah or not? They hear the shofar, but he himself can't hear that. Look what the Mishnah Berurah says. Next line, third wide line down. Wow. He will not be yotze the mitzvah, and they will fulfill the mitzvah because they are hearing the sound of the shofar. Now, there's a little yud ches there, which takes you down to Shar Hatzion. So you'll have to do a bit more scrolling, I'm afraid. This is still the Mishnah Berurah, the same person, a different sefer. Look at the Yud Ches. It's a Prima Godim, another source of Messiah. Mikol Mokoim. Nevertheless, next line, Mechuyev Badobo Mikri Lahoitzi Acherim. A most fascinating halacha here. What you see from here, that even though the person blowing is not fulfilling the mitzvah, nevertheless, he is mechuyev in the mitzvah, is obligated in the mitzvah, and therefore he is considered someone that can be motzi other people, even though he himself can't fulfill the mitzvah. Wow, that is fascinating. How does that work? So if you can now, I'm good, Peter.
It's probably an example of that sort of thing, isn't it?
I'm sorry,
Are there examples? Are there any other examples of somebody performing a mitzvah not being yotze himself?
Let's say you must say it's only where he could perform the mitzvah. Imagine, okay, another example. I've got an example for you here from the Bach of your circus. He brings it in Tofresh in Megillah. You have to hear the Megillah being named. It's not just a reading of it, it's a hearing of it. Although it's called a Mikra Megillah, it's got to be heard. It's not just saying the words, you've got to hear it. What happens if someone plugs his ear? He could hear, but he plugs his ear, cotton wool, and there's no way he can hear now. Those people would be Yotze, because he is Mechuyev, he could, talk about removing, his Mechuyev and could fulfill the mitzvah. Just because he can't fulfill the mitzvah right now, it doesn't prevent him that other people should fulfill the mitzvah. Now, how does that work? Even though he's not fulfilling the mitzvah, he's enabling other people to fulfill the mitzvah. So there's another example. Have a look, please, Peter. If you can go to Safaria. That'll be good. Stop. Or Chodosh. Or Chaim. Yeah, for who is the Or Chaim, first of all? You'll have to go back one to see who we're talking about here. Scroll back, it tells you who he is. 18th century commentary incorporating mysticism in originated in Morocco and seen as a central work by Yumin founders of the Hasidim, Or Chaim. Wonderful, founded most of the Chumoshim. Now go press the Or Chaim, please. And let's go to Deuteronomy. Let's go, now you can scroll down, you can get the Seder of the week, I think. Or not the week, the Sedras. Right at the end of this, I think it comes up with Seder, perhaps I'm wrong. No, it doesn't. Okay, so we'll have to work out where the Sedra is. I wanted the beginning of the Tzavim, which is in chapter 29. So go to 29. Thank you. And it's on Posuk 29:9. Posuk number 9 in 29. No, you've gone too far. 29:9. Atem nitzovim hayom kulchem. Don't go too quick. Yeah, okay. 29. Bit more. 29:9. This is the point I want to mention, linking up to our. There it is. Atem nitzovim. Okay, if you make it maybe slightly bigger. Basically, the question, it was last week's Sedra, basically the question is, what is this new covenant they're making? Okay? We've already spoken about the words. What is this new covenant? There's a special covenant with them. What is this all about? Now scroll down. This is such an important point. Venire, it would appear. Yeah, keep going. Bit more. You got the English as well. Venire ki kavonos Moshe bivriseh ulahachnison ba'arvus. What's arvus mean? A guarantor, responsibility. Zeh al zeh. That's what this is. Kedei sheishtadel kol echod ba'ad chaveiro. Person should try for his friend. Leval ya'avor pi Hashem. V'yiu nisposim zeh ba'ad zeh. Everyone, as you can see from in the translation too, that nobody should, as you say, stumble, and the responsibility that each one has for his fellow. And that's why it says at the end, Hanistoros, what's hidden and we know nothing about, we can't be responsible for that. That's true. For Haniglos, things which are open, we are responsible to try and help others. It's mutual responsibility. The aims are it's nothing to do with the previous covenants we've been speaking about. This is something new. This parsha, and that's why I don't want to go after 11 o'clock. Every person, obviously, depending on, there's a bit of a, I think you need to, if you can put people on mute, and that's why, depending on your standing, depending on the people you're with, the type of responsibility you'd have. Every person, if you're a leader, you'd have a greater responsibility. Those people who were the princes of the tribes had a greater responsibility. More people they're dealing with, but it's this idea of responsibility for other people. This is what's called arvus, and that's what we're talking about here in our example. You are responsible, which means if you've got the opportunity to allow someone to perform the mitzvah of hearing the shofar, even though you yourself are not hearing it right now, but you've still got this responsibility and you could do the mitzvah, even though now you're not. Therefore, you can blow for someone else, even though you're not doing the mitzvah. So we go back now to faces. Very powerful point here. That you're responsible here. You're not doing the mitzvah. You could do the mitzvah, but it doesn't matter. Even though you're not fulfilling the mitzvah, you're enabling someone else to perform that mitzvah, this responsibility, this arvus, guarantors for other people. It works the other way as well. If someone has already done a mitzvah, and that also works with the shofar, you have already heard the shofar, maybe you're actually the Baal Tzedekah yourself. You can go elsewhere to blow for other people. How does that work? How can I blow? I've done the mitzvah already. How can I blow for someone who's unwell or whatever that couldn't get to shul? How can I do that for them? It's this principle of arvus that we're learning here in shofar. So in other words, even though you're not doing the mitzvah, other people are doing the mitzvah. It may be you're not performing them, you haven't yet performed the mitzvah, you're going to do it later, or maybe you have. Same way, like, for example, making kiddush for other people who may have heard kiddush or haven't heard it, it doesn't matter. The same with Megillah, the same with other mitzvahs. This idea of responsibility for other people. And I just want to conclude with other point. We talk about responsibility of other people. One thing we are going to be hearing a lot of over Slichas and certainly Yom Kippur, where we talk about the Yud Gimel Midas. Remember the Yud Gimel Midas Arachim? If I can ask you, Peter, to bring up the Gemara. Those people may have the Gemara if they've got it. Stuff Yud Zion on the base. We've mentioned this before. I'm not sure if I mentioned this point from the Gaonim who explain it. We'll conclude with this. Yud Zayin on the base. Peter, thank you. Thank you, sir. Oh, no, we're not Chov Zayin. I'll have to go. Yeah, it's the one underneath. Well done. Thank you. We've mentioned this Gemara somewhere, way back. Look at this Lashon. Vayava Hashem al Ponov. What's so hard to explain? Hashem passed in front al Ponov of Moshe Rabbeinu. Remember, this was remember when Moshe Rabbeinu had gone up Har Sinai. Vayikra, he calls Omer Rabbi Yochanan. Have you read about 7-8 lines down? Omer Rabbi Yochanan, the end of the line. Il mole mikra kosav. Had the Apostle not said that, and Hashem passed over his face. Vayav Hashem aponov. Ef shel orikam. What does it mean? Melamed, it teaches. Shenisate fakodesh baruch hu k'shliach tzibor. And the Mashal explains this was the vision that Moshe Rabbeinu had, like we say, like an individual, a shliach tzibor. Vayav Hashem al ponov, over his face, as it were. Kishliach Tzibor, v'hero lo Moshe Seder Tefillah, showing him, Omalo kol zman she Yisrael chutin, Sadi Yisrael chutin, Yasu lefonai kaseder, they should do like this. V'ani moichelehem. What does it mean, like this? What, with the talis over the head? What does it mean? Hashem, Hashem, and that we have there the Yud Gimel Midas, Hashem, Hashem, Kei Rachel B'chanu. Now, I think we might have mentioned this before. What does it mean you should do like this and you'll be forgiven? What does it mean do? Just say the words. What does it mean do like this? So if you remember, I quoted, I don't have time now, we can go back to faces. There was the Reishis Chochmah, early Pirush. Actually, again, let's go for it. Go on, Peter, let's go for it. Another Sefaria for you. If we can do it. We have to go back to the beginning of Sefaria for this. It's not going to be on there. No, it'll have to go, yes. Go now down to, can you put up on search, Reishis Chochmah, R-E-S-H-I-T. Oh, there it is, Reishis Chochmah. Great. Praise Reishis Chochmah, we'll find out about it a little bit. There he is, the Reishis Chochmah, 16th century work, that goes back a long way, doesn't it? Fablio di Vidas, based on the Zohar, describes a method of meditation that combines visualization and computation. The book was originally published by the author's nephew. There you go. But it's 16th century. Now, we want, if you come down to contents, no, keep going down. We want, the gate of humility. Perik 1:1. Go down, Perik 1. Yeah, you're going to have to, they haven't translated this, have they? So do some scrolling. Keep scrolling down, and I'll tell you when to stop it. It's a bit of a far, when it says, I'm going to have to stop you in a minute when it tells you. Keep going. Unlock a Megillah. No. Keep going. Bit more. Hope I'm going to find this. No, a bit more. It's quite a long way down. Stop. No, I'm not going to go on. Have I gone too far? There's a minute, be able to find it. A bit more. Yes, here we are. Wow, very excellent. Number 20. Shomati Mishem HaGa'onim. He writes, I hear from the name of the Ga'onim. Now, the Ga'onim are like pre-medieval. In other words, they're going up to the year 1000 CE. Look at this. By Yahweh Hashem Alponav, Hashem passed over his face by Yikra. Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Ilmole Mikra Kosovi Epshala Omer. Melame should be like passing over a face. Concentration, is that what it's referring to? Melame Shinisati Bakodesh Baruch Hu Kishliach Tzibur. This is the vision that Moshe Rabbeinu had. The Heror Moshe Va'omalo, and said to him, Kol Zaman She Yisrael Yasu Lefonei Kasei Dazeh. If they do this, what does it mean? Say the Yud Gimel Midas, Ani Moichalem, Ad Kal L'Shoy. Now that's the Gemara we just saw. Va'adova Kosher. Shari Oni Royim Shekam upon him on the maskim. We mentioned these Yud Gimel Midas, and they don't seem to be answered. Ela Omrim Haga'onim. What does it mean, Yasu Lefonai? It sounds like Yasu, do and say these words. No, we're missing the point. Yes, you do have to say the words, but Kavonos Yasu Lefonai Kaseda Zeh. Ein HaKavona Levad Alatifu, putting a talus on and saying the words and concentrating. Yeah, that might be needed, but it's not just that. Ele Yasu Seder HaMidos. That's what it means. Do like these words. These are, let me say, the main. We talk about the 13 midas attributes of Rabbeinu Shalom. We have to follow suit. Eliyasu Seder Hamidah Shelimed HaKadosh Baruch Hu Moshe Shu Kain Rachum, compassionate, kind. The Hainu Mahu Rachum Afatoti Rachum V'Chein Lechol Yud Gimel Midas. Very powerful message there. That when we're saying these words, we're saying to ourselves, Ya'asu Lefonai Kaseder Hazeh. If we adopt the principles that we find in the Yud Gimel Midas, that is really what's wanted. So if we go back to faces, please, Peter, and we'll close that. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know if I have mentioned that before. I don't know. This Ga'odim, very powerful message there. So these Yud Gimel Midas we're going to be saying, I say over Yom Kippur so many times. Yes, we are appealing for the compassion of Hashem for us. Yes, we are thinking that we're going to try and improve in some way. Some slight improvement in as I say, a mensch is only a mensch, as we know. So yes, there's room for improvement wherever we are, whatever level we are. Always things we can improve on. And when we talk about mitzvahs being odom lamokim, but also the powerful message of the Ga'onim, which like predate Rashi, say going 900s, 800, 900, 1000 CE. That's the Ga'onim. Their pirush in that is Ya'asu Lefona. We have to adopt that bein Odom Lachavera too. And those words that, yes, we're, I say, appealing to Hashem for kindness for all of us and the whole of Klal Yisrael, the whole world. But also we have to try and adopt those principles, those attributes too. And then if we do that, we can look forward, hopefully, to, I say, a good Keben Shiur, Gemach Simatova to one and all. It's good to have all the people with us here. I see Michael with us as well now. Good to see you. Don't know if there's anybody else we've missed. Hopefully we've said hello to everybody. And yes, so with that, gentlemen, I wish you a very good, as I say, a good Keben Shiur, as they say.
Thank you. You too, Norman. Thank you.
One to one and all.